Hi class, today we're going to do a rain jacket. It's going to be a little hard. This is one of your hardest things that you're going to be doing, but I trust you that you're going to be able to do it and you're going to be surprised and love it once you're done. Okay, so we're going to do the how to measure on it first. Flatten out your coat, jacket, whatever, so it's laying flat as much as possible. We're going to start with the neck drops. So what we're going to do is we have to get the high point shoulder area here. Okay. We're going to put the ruler straight across from high point shoulder to high point shoulder. Then we're going to take the measuring tape and go down to where the overlap actually ends, because you want to know where the overlap ends. So right here at the crisscross area, go straight up, whoops, I'm moving this, to beneath the ruler, that's your high point shoulder area, that's 4.5 inches. Okay? While you still have your ruler down, you can get your back neck drop. You just squeeze it in here, and your back neck drop is right here to the seam, to underneath the ruler. I'm just going to put it here so you can see, starting here. It's actually 3/8 of an inch, so put 3/8 of an inch back neck drop. Now we have to measure from high point shoulder for the neck width. So you can actually use your clear ruler. Again from high point shoulder to high point shoulder here. You can do it, and this is a little hard to see, but it's 6 3/4 of an inch. Okay, 6 3/4 inch is your neck width. The next measurement we're going to do is the bust. Again, as usual, we go down 1 inch, put a pin, and we do the same with the other side, 1 inch. Now this, because it's a princess line, and for the bust you have to kind of smooth it out as much as possible. So you start 1 inch below, right here from the edge, and slightly press down as you're going, because you have a little bit of excess here, which you have to include for the bust, to the edge. So it is 20 1/4 inches. Doubling that, so that'll be 40.5 inches for the chest. The jacket always has to be bigger than a blouse because it's going over something. So always when you're fitting a jacket or anything, make sure that you have a top and bottom on the person or mannequin so that it's actually being put on something on top. A lot of people make the mistake of fitting onto the form directly without anything underneath it. So a lot of times when you go into the store, the jackets don't fit, you have to get a size bigger. It's because they made it to fit the form exactly. Okay? The high point shoulder to waist position, we determine that on the form, what our measurement is. For juniors it's 15, for Missy it's 16. So this is a Missy jacket, so we're going to go down here to 16 and just put a pin here. So that's 16 inches from high point shoulder. Okay? Then we're going to go straight across for the waist position. So again, you want to go straight across here to the waist. It's 19.5. You're going to double it. So it's going to be actually 39 inches for the waist. Okay? Now we're going to come down here for the sweep. And we're going to measure along the curve, flattened the entire sweep from edge to edge. And this is 24.5 inches. So that'll make it 49 inches, doubling it. We're now going to measure the front raglan. Okay. So what we're going to do is just go from the right here underarm, follow the raglan shape, because the raglan shapes are not just straight, they can be a little wavy, so you have to measure right along the curve. Okay, so that's 11 inches. That's for the front raglan. Now you have to do the same thing for the back raglan. You should actually move it all the way over, but we're going to do it like this. See how the shape goes like this? Again, from the underarm, follow the seam directly around and to the edge of the collar seam. It's 12 3/4 of an inch. So see, there's a big difference between the front and the back. Now we're going to do the muscle of the sleeve. Again, we always go down 1 inch below armhole to get the measurement. Put a pin. Okay, and with the muscle, you start from the inseam and go straight across like this. And this is 7 3/8 of an inch. Again, this is woven, so you're going to have to double it, so it's 14 3/4 of an inch total. Now, we're going to come down here to the edge of the sleeve. Notice how this buckle closure kind of brings it in a little bit. You need to lay it out flat because you want the full flat measurement. So you're going to measure right here along the edge of the opening, sleeve opening. This is. And make sure it's flat. This is 6 1/4 inches, double it, so that's 12 1/2 inches. Now, what we want to do is to get the placement of where the raglan actually is. So this is a measurement that you're going to actually put on the sketch page. You're going to have to do it front and back. So you need the measurement right along here from the seam to the seam, which is right here. Measurement, and that's 1 3/4 of an inch. And then you need to do the back, which is from the seam to the seam over here, which is 1 1/2 inches. Okay, they're different. Now we're going to do one last measurement that's in the tech pack. We're going to do the high point shoulder length. So put this right on the high point shoulder, straight down, flat, make sure it's straight, and the garment is 35 inches long. Okay. Now all the other specs are going to be put on the outside of the tech pack in your information page and the sketch page. We want to put here this stitch that's in the front. You're going to put an arrow from here to here and indicate how long the stitch is. Notice the stitch doesn't go all the way down to the armhole. You can't sketch that either. It has to stop. So it's going to measure in the front along the edge of the stitch, 7 3/4 of an inch. Notice here, there's a little bar tack here that has to be on your sketch also. In the back, that same stitch, you're going to follow along here. Again, it has a bar tack. And this is 8 inches, so it's bigger. You want to measure where the princess line starts from underneath the arm up, okay? If you look closely, the stitching is on the inside and the seam is on this outside edge. So it's not here that you measure to the seam. There's an actual seam here. It's hard to see, but there's a seam. So make sure you draw seam and then double needle. So we're just going to go along the edge here, up to the seam, which is right here, 7 1/2 inches. So you need to put an arrow here and indicate 7 1/2 inches. Okay, now we're going to be doing the back raglan princess seam where it is located. So just follow underneath the arm, along the seam to the seam of the princess line, which is 7 1/2 inches. So you're going to put an arrow here, put 7 1/2 inches. At the bottom, we're going to do the same thing from the edge over. So from the side seam, along edge here, to the actual seam of the princess seam is 7 1/4 inches. So you're going to have an arrow here, 7 1/4 inches. And then along the back, you're going to do the same thing from the side seam over. You want to measure from the seam along the edge to the side seam, and that one is 7 3/8 of an inch. Okay. Now notice this has inset pockets. Okay, so you want to put an arrow here and say inset pocket, and you want to give the opening length. So the opening, from opening to the other end of the opening, is 6 inches. So you're going to have an arrow here that says 6 inches, inset pocket. Also, there's 6 buttons. Notice where they're placed. The middle buttons are on the waist, okay? And then you have equal amount here and here. When you're drawing, make sure that you draw them in the correct look. Don't put the buttons down here. Don't put the buttons up here. You know, notice that there is a certain space. So you want to give them an indication where the buttonhole starts, because up here it's a little more difficult with all the different things going on here. It's easier to go up from the bottom to the middle of the buttonhole, and that's 11.5 inches. So put a arrow, put 11.5 inches to the buttonhole. They'll know where to start their buttonholes. The collar. Okay, notice that right here, from here to here, point to point, this is what is called a collar spread. You need to give this so that they can get the shape of the collar notch correct. So just measure from point flat to point flat, and this is coming out 2 inches. Now you want to give a measurement for the openings on the lapel and on the collar. Okay, even if they're the same or not the same, you have to give 2 different measurements. So from here to the edge, this one is actually 3 5/8 of an inch, and then the measurement for the collar with an arrow going across from the point in is actually 4 inches. Okay, so put those 2 measurements down, and you have a collar spread. You have the collar width right here, and you have the collar stand. They're 2 different things. So you want to do the collar width, go from the center back edge down to the seam where the collar stand is. That's 4 inches. Then you want to give another measurement of just the collar stand. Okay, so from the seam down to here is 1 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so you have to have a seam here, and you have to get the measurements for each of these. Notice there is a flap here. Okay, so this you want to make sure that you show as it looking like this. Now notice this is a rounded flap. It's not in a point or anything. It's rounded. So you want to draw that rounded. Okay, you want to give a measurement following the edge of this flap here, and it's actually 6 3/4 of an inch here. Okay, that way they know where to end it and start curving up. Okay, that's only one measurement you have to have on here. Notice here that you see here, you don't have to draw in the label or anything, but you have to draw these seams, because the total inside of the jacket is all taped, clean finished seams. So you want to show this. So what you're going to do is you're going to draw the seam open like this. You're going to draw this little taping on each side, and then you're going to put the double needle in here. So you have a lot going on here, but you can put everything in there. You want to show just this part. Then you want to indicate at the top of the sketch up here that all seams are 3/16 of an inch binded. There's a lot of stitching on this, and it's all different ways. Again, there is a line here. There's a seam here. That's the princess seam. That has to be put there. Then next to it, right on the edge, you're going to put the double needle top stitch, okay, on both sides here. Now notice on the center front area that you're going to have an edge stitch and then a double needle. So you want to give them a position between the edge stitch and the double needle, so they know where to start it, and it's actually a 1/2 inch. Okay, so you want to indicate, you can indicate anywhere, put a little arrow here, put 1/2 inch. So you're going to put edge stitch, and you're going to put double needle. Okay, the same thing goes with the arm. If you notice this, I want all of the seams and everything to show in the front, not in the back. I want the back to be clean. So when you're drawing the picture, I want this seam of the sleeve to look like this, where it's right on the edge. So in actuality, you have a seam that's right here on the inside here, then you have the double needle, and then you'll have the edge. So the seam is right here on the inside with a double needle, and show that going all the way down. Now with the sleeve, another thing here is that see how this is kind of binding up here? You don't want to draw it like this. Okay, you want to actually draw it, pretend that this whole sleeve is flat. So you're going to draw the sleeve a little wider and flat, not gathered up here. Okay, so notice on the front how it looks. Okay, this is the front. You're going to have 2 belt loops and the strap right here. That's all you're going to see. But you have double needle here and you have edge stitch on the belt loops. Now at the top here, all the belt loops are the same size, so you just need to measure the belt loop length and width, which is 2 3/8 of an inch long by 1/2 inch wide. Okay, 2 3/8 inch wide by 1/2 inch wide, all belt loops. You can put that at the top of your sketch because all the belt loops are the same. But you want to make sure that when you're drawing this, that it looks exactly like this. Notice where the flap actually ends. The flap ends at the front armhole raglan where the stitch is that goes up. So you want to make sure that when you draw it, this is where it ends and with the stitching. Okay. Now the call out is going to be the buckle on the back. Now we make sure that the belt is always on the waist. So you're going to make sure that when you do the belt loops and this little large belt loop that it's on the waistline. Okay. Front and back has to be the same area that you're going to put the waistline. Now we're going to measure this big large belt buckle. Now we're going to measure it 2 1/4 inches wide, then come to the point, up to the edge, and this is 3 3/4 of an inch long. Okay, notice there's a vent in the back, but it's not shown open, it's shown closed. Okay, but you're going to have to indicate there's a vent and how far up it goes. So you're going to measure from the edge to where the opening is right here is 12 3/4 of an inch. So put an arrow, 12 3/4 of an inch. And down here, you're going to indicate that this is an inverted pleat. Okay? So you're going to say down here, inverted pleat. And what you want to do is measure the complete pleat right here. This gives an indication what the insert is width-wise. So from the inside over to the seam is 6 1/2 inches. So you're going to put 6 1/2 inch inverted pleat. That's all you have to do. But actually draw it closed, okay? Because you don't want to have them making any space, even just a little like that. You don't want that. You want them to know that it's a closed pleat. Okay, again, you have the seam, princess seam here with a double needle on the inside. Notice the back stitching. It's double needle. This is a center back seam, so you have to put a center back seam, put double stitching on this side and double stitching on this side. And also notice the collar has the edge stitch with a 1/2 inch in between with the double needle here. This is the detail that I need you to have at the bottom of your page, this buckle, exactly the way that you see it here. Okay, just the buckle. That's what I want you to show. So we're going to fix it so the way that I need you to have it look. Okay. So this is what I need you to sketch out in detail. Okay. Again, you have one belt loop here. You have a buckle. You have to indicate this is a metal buckle right here. You're going to just show this part of it. Then you're going to show again the double needle stitching, that there's a point here and everything, and that is proportionate like this. So a measurement that you want to give for the width of the strapping here, this is 2 inches wide, so put 2 inches. Now you want to indicate also how much of a flap over this is with the button. You have to draw a buttonhole also. Make sure you have a buttonhole and button, because you could have a fake one here and not have a buttonhole. So you have to show that you do have a buttonhole there. So from the edge to the point, you want to put 2 3/8 of an inch right here, straight across, 2 3/8 of an inch. Okay. Make sure you have like a little spacing in here for the buckle area. Indicate here that it's a metal buckle, and then you have a little bit of fabrication here. Okay, so draw it exactly like this. Now you want to also put where the actual buckle starts and is placed on the sleeve. So you want to measure from the bottom edge of the sleeve up to the loop, and that's 2 inches. Okay, they need to have a placement because they could place it way down here, they could place it way up here, so you have to give them a measurement where to place it. Belt. Okay, you can lay it out straight flat here. Now notice that, look here, this is also going to be detail at the bottom. You want to sketch this exactly like this, with it coming in here and it goes out here to a point. Okay, that's how the belt looks. So measure along the length of the longest area right across the belt, and that is 48 inches. Now you want to measure on the other side along the edge here, going right to where it ends, and this is 45.5 inches. Then you want to measure the width of the belt. It's 2 inches. Again, you need double needle top stitch right on the edge all the way around your belt. This is it for the rain jacket. I do want you to, when you're sketching it, sketch it out like this, flat, not with the belt. So you're going to have like the shape here going out, little A line here, and it's completely flat. Don't put any gathered lines or anything like that in there. Leave everything flat. Okay, it's not as bad as it looks. You'll be able to do it, so let's get going.